Hello, Dr. Howard. My name is Paula Guao. I'll be doing a presentation on how schemas are affecting young adults that have been abused as a child. So, what are schemas? Schemas, in simpler terms, are how we perceive everyone in our world. It's also how we stereotype. Schemas are solely based on experiences. Like for example, I go in and I meet my future boss, and I get a good impression from him. I think he's a great guy. And then someone else goes in and meets my future boss, that they don't get a good impression from them. And from there on, we build a schema like, oh, hey, this person's bad. And that's where schemas come from. Now, there are multiple types of schemas. These four I actually liked a lot because they somewhat relate to to childhood like abuse. So one of them would be like person schemas. This is more like the behavior parents, like how well do you look? Are you well groomed? Another one would be social schemas. This is more like how we act in society. Like, do we sip wine and we don't chug it? We don't eat garlic. We open the doors. Another one would be self schemas, which is like, say for instance, your self occupation, what you like, your dislikes. Another one would be event schemas. Now this is more like this kind of schema that you perceive as of in a business type of a what's the word, a, not a business relation, but like more of a business setting. Yes, that's the word. You're well dressed, you're well groomed, you're very professional. um, that type of schema. Now, schemas being used for perception. Schemas being used for perception, they're more like how we see ideas about someone or something. For example, when a child first experiences something for the first time, they'll either perceive it as good or as bad. But for children that have been abused, their schemas are solely based on negative schemas. So if they try to have like a positive schema, it easily gets blocked out by the negative. They'll easily say like, oh, you're not self-worthy, um, or this happened because it was your fault. This is more like the self schemas that are talking about. Now, how it affects young adults. So schemas are both good and bad. For example, some people can have good experiences about something, and some can have really bad ones. In young adults, though, there could be schemas that could be affecting them. For instance, they see a person wearing red, and that triggers their schemas like, oh, that person is going to be bad because of what they experienced as a child. Now, statistics. So, I found a bunch of journals that had really good, statistic wise, good studies actually. This one involved 328 students out of 100 college women. They showed that had conflicts within themselves due to childhood traumatic experiences, mainly abuse. Um, Now, the article that I found was called The Impact of Childhood Psychology Abuse, and it is by Terry Moore. Now, this study showed that these women were introduced to three maladaptive schemas, which are known as mistrust, abuse, and abandonment. Because of the results, it concluded that due to the psychological abuse as a child, it has been having an impact on their lives. Um, so for them, it's just they haven't been able to move forward because of these schemas. Now, relationship between childhood abuse and schemas. So there seems to be a pattern concerning schemas and how young adults use them. According to the article Abuse-Specific Schemas by Candice Faring, she and her colleagues described that about 79,640 children are abused. Even though that is a high number, they said that in the article that it has decreased throughout the years. And that's, I mean, to me, that I still think that's a really high number. But either way, she said it decreased. Um, She describes that when a child is abused, they immediately use negative schemas. Again, back to the other study, that's where the women are getting the negative schemas. They use this to help cope with their stressors, and in the end, they end up using more negative schemas than positive, resulting in a depressive childhood. Within that depressive state goes into their adult life. Now, how it affects their lives. Well, I already described that. um, Besides the fact that it doesn't let them move forward, uh, the trauma and schema talking has allowed them to use shortcuts for their memories. Somewhat for their memories, not really. But in general, it just doesn't let them move forward, sadly. They're either stuck in their position thinking like, oh, I'm always going to be at fault because of this. But in general, it's not their fault that they got abused. So another article that I found that had statistics, a really good case study, was by Kaya Tizell. She used about 300 adults, 58% of those were all women, and my apologies. This study showed that the women were completing a questionnaire, and this questionnaire was very discreet, and only they knew their answers. It basically described the traumatic experiences as a child. And again, with the other two articles, it did show that they were exposed to maladaptive schemas like avoidance, emotional abuse, which resulted a lot of interpersonal conflicts within them. Now, is there any way to help them? Yes, and yes. So, for one, they could either go to therapy, but so far there is a study being conducted. It actually was conducted by the Cal State University of San Bernardino. This case study was basically being used by the faculty of the university, and they only used women, but women of different ethnicities and different race. Normally what they did is they did the same thing questionnaire. However, they tried to see if there was any correlation to their schemas. And so far, they used about 263 undergrad women students, and all of them that were participated showed signs of maladaptive schemas, which resulted in a successful study. And this study, they said that they'll be using it to further investigate and further study for early maladaptive schemas, so that they could help not just younger adults, but like at least younger children, to help them out and cope with their traumatic experiences. And then that is all. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.